Hi, welcome back to Learn Payload with Colin. Today we're jumping into our real estate marketplace platform that we're building with Payload CMS and of course NextJS. And today we're going to dive into specifically the property detail page. Now we did start a little bit on the property detail page, but it wasn't a design. We just created a basic front end just so we can get used to getting the data out of Payload and then rendered out on to the front end, just to kind of see how that all fits together. So we started on the properties collection. We added a location collection, which is a relationship field for the address of the property. And then we also have a features collection so that you can add things like hardwood floors, swimming pools, porch, mountain views, that kind of stuff. And so now that that's kind of laid out, most of the bulk of the property collection is enough for us to actually start building out the property detail page, including a nice large photo gallery as the sort of the hero of the property detail page. It's going to take up quite a bit of space, and I'll show you that design in a minute. It's something I did in Figma at first, and then implemented it in NextJS just as a static page, just using Tailwind and all of that stuff. And so then we're going to use this video to see how to put it together, including getting the photos collection in there, and then rendering out those photos in a nice responsive photo gallery. And so, all right, if that interests you, if you're new here, my name is Colin Brown. I've been a web developer for 20 plus years, and I'm only just now learning Payload CMS as part of my sort of toolbox as a web developer, either in my full-time job or whether I'm doing contracting or consulting. And so we're building out a fictitious real estate agency that serves the East Tennessee area, just to give it a little bit more of a generic, less of a generic flavor than what you're usually what you usually get with building out demos. And so I hope to actually use this as a template, as a real website, to try to get local agents in my area onboarded to using the platform. So this will be a real production ready website when we're done with it. It may not be fully featured, but it will have all of the most basic requirements that an agency can use right out of the box and get value out of it immediately. So it's a bit of an MVP style, but it will be definitely production ready. So no cutting corners. And so if that interests you, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And with that, let me show you the page that we're building toward in this video, and then we'll get right into the code. All right. All right, so what you're looking at is our new property detail page. This is what we're going to be working toward in this video. And then once I'm done with this demo, we will check out our previous branch to roll back all the way back to the previous version of the code. And then we will build toward this. And so let's check out what we have. Of course, I mentioned the large photo gallery here as kind of a hero. I've also added a layout to the platform, so I have a header and I also have a footer down here. This is all static. I'm not going to be going into more detail. I'm not going to make this dynamic, not yet, in this video, but it's all kind of just static. But all of this is coming from Payload. The title, the photos, the address, price, beds, baths, square feet, these details here on all these features. We're not going to go through the map. In a future video, we're going to add a Latin long as a field to the properties collection, and then with that Latin long, we'll be able to render out a map. I also included a contact agent form. This is all going to be static in this video at least, and because we're not going to get into users yet. When we dive into user authentication, we're going to touch on user roles, which will include an agent role, so that we can have agents assigned to properties, and they'll have like agent profiles and all of that. So I also mentioned that the photo gallery is responsive. Not that it's really important and relevant to Payload CMS, but just so you're aware how it all works. Here I'm in my MacBook Pro view, and it's basically the largest size is going to include 6 thumbnails on the right and a large featured photo on the left. And then as you scroll here, this is sticky. But now if I go into, say, MacBook Air, I have 4 instead and 1 on the right. And then if you go into more of a tablet view, you get 2 on the right and 1 on the left. And then you guessed it, 1 photo for mobile. And so if we have time, I might get into adding a modal here so that we can show the full view of the image, scrollable view. Looks better on MacBook Pro. So they're really enlarged here on the larger screen, but you can kind of scroll through all of them to see the full view. And so, and then in this video, we're also going to dive into the admin portion of this page. So if you step into this property in the admin panel, you will see that this is the photos for that page. And I also updated the default view of an upload collection in Payload. I just modified the CSS to get this sort of thumbnail gallery looking view rather than the default sort of stacked table view. And I'll show you that in this video, the difference between what we're going to get. And so these are draggable. And you can actually change the feature photo by just deciding which photo is first. And so if I want, let's say, this to be the feature photo, all I have to do is just drag it, save it, and then head back over here to the website. And now you can see it is the featured photo. And so there's that. All right, so that's what we're going to be working on today. Let's dive into the code and get started. All right, so what you're looking at is our previous property detail page. I rolled back all of the code that I've worked on for this video, and now we're kind of doing a reset. Now we're at a state where, for the most part, it's where we were at in our last video, where we were able to kind of stub out this like vanilla property detail page just so we can see the data on being rendered from Payload. And so that's what we're looking at. And so now let's look into the code and see, start digging into it. We'll start building out the property detail page, the new one. All right, we're over here in our editor with everything rolled back to our previous version, with a couple of exceptions. Just to help make this video go a little smoother, there are some things that I've added to this repo, to the code base, to make things a little bit easier for me. They're not critical to learning Payload CMS, but there's some techniques, best practices that I personally use quite a bit in other projects, and so I just wanted to make sure I'm bringing them over to this to help me work a little bit more optimally on this project. Just to make a long story short, let me show you what I did. So we have the concept of a seeder, and you saw me create a seeder for the features as well as the locations. But I created a seeder for the properties, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's basically using Faker.js to kind of give me some addresses. And I have this sort of like title builder, some adjectives, some nouns, some regions. So like, randomizing, stylish family home in the Smoky Mountains, that kind of thing. And so we have the location that's giving us, we're pulling in all of the locations that have been seeded, all the features that have been seeded, and then just randomizing them for the property. I'll have this code all in GitHub, so you can see if you want to see this in more detail. But what I do is, what this seeder is doing is generating 100 properties, and so that's it. So I also have a user seeder, and this one is just so I don't have to keep creating that first user that Payload makes you create, and so it's just an admin user, just one user for now. Obviously, we'll fill this out a little bit more as we dive into authentication, but we won't do that in this video. All right, the other thing that I've added, let's see, I have a library, some things in here. I have a function for formatting the price that'll be on the front end. I also have in my DB folder, I have a client.ts file. And this just makes things a little bit easier to grab the Payload client, the local API client. And so I just have a function in here that says get payload client, which just returns get payload, the client. And this just allows me to have one place to do the config. I don't have to like have, import config and import get payload on every single time I need the payload client, and so I just have a function to do that. Not a big deal. There's another thing I have that helps me a little bit that you may see that as we walk through the code, you'll be like, what the heck is that? I do this quite a bit in other projects, and I found it to be very helpful. So I have a routes file, TypeScript file, and right now all I have is a home route and a property show route. What this does is it generates URLs for me, and so by name. So if I need the URL for the property detail page, I just say route. I just do a function called to this, and I would say route, and then property.show, and then if it needs any parameters, what I would do is just pass them in as an object, so full address, something like that, with the ID, just like that. And so that's what that does. It's also, there's a lot of like TypeScript stuff in here that is not super critical, but it's very helpful for developers who are using this function. You get type hints for all of the different routes that you're going to use, and so like when you start typing in the function, you can do like, there you can see right here already it shows me the two routes that are available. So just a little helper function for dealing with routes, and that way if you ever change the route, you don't have to go and search and replace everywhere in your code to do that. You just update the map here and you're good. So there's that. I also have a function called generate primary key. I have not implemented it yet in this video, but what it does is it gives us the ability to customize our ID on the property collection to start with. A lot of other collections that we get into will probably also have a custom primary key, which overrides the default ID that Payload provides, which is an auto incrementing ID. But for anything that is public facing, like in the URL, and you need that ID in the URL to identify the property, I don't like using auto incrementing IDs. It's just not that great. Just something that looks a little friendlier. And so there's that. We're gonna add this to the properties collection here in a minute. That's what we're gonna do that's what we're gonna do first. Get that out of the way. All right, and then I also have a concept called a data model, and this may or may not be the right pattern to use, but I've used it in several other projects that I've found helpful, particularly if you have data that needs to be formatted on the front end, like let's say a price. The price in the database is an integer, sometimes in cents, sometimes in dollars or USD. In this case, the property is in dollars. We're not dealing with cents on a home price. but I need it formatted on the front end, and so I like to have a single object to deal with any data related to a particular collection. So like a property, when I access data off of a property, when I do the query, I'll hydrate, so to speak, this property class with all the data, and then now I have all this. I have access to all that data if I need it, and if I need to format it in any particular way, it's already formatted. The address is there. Details kind of clean this up a little bit. Here's like square feet is another instance. It's just an integer, but it needs to be formatted like with without a comma and all that stuff. Lot size, same thing. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm doing in here to help kind of make the front end rendering of this data a little bit more convenient. I also have a URL getter here that grabs all of the address details of the property and then generates a URL string based off of that, which we're going to be using quite heavily. And then here's that route function that I talked about, and it's just saying property show, so it grabs the data ID and then the full address as that param that I showed you, and then it just grabs all of the data and then joins it with slashes. And so I'm also using Slugify just to make sure the addresses don't have any weird characters in them, and it just kind of cleans up the URL a little bit more. And so that's a package that you can install here. So lastly, I think that might be it to just kind of get that stuff out of the way. But yeah, I think that's it. Here's our current property page. There's our home page. I think that is it. Yeah. All right. So I just wanted to get that out of the way to make sure you're not caught off guard about like, hey, where did that come from? So I just wanted to walk you through that, and that's just going to make the rest of this video go a little bit smoother. And so I hope you found that useful. All right. So now the first thing we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to have that. We're going to generate a custom ID for the property. And I have done that in the previous video as a one-off video on how to customize IDs. So it's quite trivial, very easy to do. But if you don't like auto-incrementing IDs, this is something you can do as well. So this generate primary key uses Node crypto to generate those IDs at a particular byte length. And so if you go into the properties collection now, I have that over here in config collections properties over here. And now here's our title. And then all you have to do to generate your own ID. Here, by the way, I'm going to turn off cursor for now. It's going to get in my way while I'm doing this video. And so now all I have to do is say name, ID, type is going to be text instead of an integer this time, because we're going to have alphanumeric IDs. And then we have admin. We do not want the ID field to show up in our admin panel for obvious reasons. You don't need to edit that or create that. So we're just going to hide it from the admin panel like that. And then now you need a handler for generating the ID. When you create a property, the default value needs to be injected with that new ID. So what we're going to set the default value like so, and that takes a function. And then now all we have to do is just return the generate primary key like that, and I just added 8 for there to generate an 8-byte string. But so we added that, and that means we should do. Now we're going to run that seeder again, so we can generate all those properties. So pnpm db seed. And if as a reminder, db seed is a script that we have in our package JSON file. Oh, pnpm. So we have all our 100 properties and features and locations. So let's run the server. And then head back on over to the browser, admin panel. All right, we don't need this here. So here's our properties. You go into properties and there's all of our 100 properties. And you can see here, here's the ID now. Yeah, so there's the ID. You can see that in the API as well. And so here's all of the data that we have. All right, so now let's go to the property detail page that we currently have and see how that looks. Make sure that still works, at least with the new ID. So you can see here, it's not going to work with this old integer ID. It's a 404. But now if we take this ID here, this should work. And there we go. We're looking at the new property, the property with the new ID. All right, simple enough. So now let's start building out the new page. All right, back over here in our editor. We're going to create a new folder structure. So we currently have this properties, but that's not going to be the actual route. And so what we want is something like, we want our URLs to look like this. We want the path to be home. We just need some kind of keyword to anchor to. And then we're going to have add street address. And then we're going to have the city. And then the state. And then the zip code. And then the ID. Something like that. That's multiple characters, something like that. So that's the route that we want. But this needs to be a variable length. So sometimes maybe a property will have a suite number, and if it's like a condo or something, if they're selling a condo. And so we want to add additional things like, I don't know, apartment number 2 or something like that. And so this needs to be flexible and a variable number of nodes in here. And so the way you do that is with a catch-all group, a route group, a catch-all route group. And let's start building that out. In our front end group here, we're going to create another group called property, just to kind of enclose everything into the property detail page. So we have that. And then we're going to create the new folder home. And then in there is where we create our catch-all group. And that's just going to be a single folder with 2 double brackets, square brackets, and then 3 dots like that. And then you can call this whatever you want. And you can say route. You can call it route. We'll just call it route path for now. And then that's one folder. And then inside there is where you create your page. All right, let's just export something really quick here. And that should allow us to now go to something like this. Let's check that out. And there it is. You can hardly see it on the screen, but there's the hello, and now you can you can change this to anything you want. You can change this to anything you want. You can also remove this if you want. In fact, you can remove all of this all the way up to there if you want. It's all going to be directed to the same page. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to just grab the end. So this is going to come in as a parameter. So route path will come in as a param, and it's going to be an array of all of these path parts. So I'll show you that here. Params, and then params. So what is params? You might say params is just, it may include let's say route path like that, and that will be an array of strings like so. But there is a small issue with that, and I'll show you here in a second. But let's just JSON stringify that params. Go back, and so you can see here, so that is the array. You can go back and you get everything there. But here's the issue. We need this page to be an async function because we're going to be doing database fetching some data. And when you do that, I believe you're going to get a warning or an error when that happens. Yeah, it's going to be, you're going to see that you're not going to see it out here. So it's probably not a big deal. It's just going to be a warning. And it's going to be that params, it says error, route path used params or similar expression. Params should be awaited before using its properties. And so this actually is going to be a promise. So what we'll do is we'll just wrap this in a promise like that, and that should take care of it. And now we need to await the params, and so we can say const route path equals await params. And now let's just JSON stringify that route path, and you should no longer be getting that error. And now it's clean. So now there's the path. All right, so let's grab the last item of the array and use that to fetch our property. So what we're going to do, we're going to say const id equals route path route path length -1. That gives us the last item of the array. And now let's import our helper function for sorry. Let's import our helper function for payload. We called that get payload client. And there we have our payload API ready to go. And so now let's get our data equals await payload dot find by ID, pass in the collection name and the ID. Yeah, let's just, I don't know why I did that in uppercase. All right, so now we have our data. We should. And let's see how that looks. And of course, we're going to get an error because this is an ID that doesn't exist. So let's grab this ID now. And there we go. Let's zoom back out a little bit. And so there's the entire JSON for this property. All right, so now we're going to start building out the templates, the page for this, setting up the photo gallery, and all of that. I'm going to create a context provider for the property. That way that this data will get passed down into the page through the provider, and then any component that we're going to add, child component that we're going to add onto the page, will use the hook from that provider to get access to the property. You don't have to do it that way, but for me, I like that because it keeps things nice and clean. So your HTML actually is not littered with all these like props being passed around. And so you can just see the component name, component name, component name. It's just nice and clean. You know, if you're on a team of developers, they can look at it and it just looks so obvious of what's going on. So, all right, so let's start to carve out some of these components. First, we're going to create that context component, and we're going to create a property folder here. We're just going to call this context.tsx, and I'm just going to paste this one in. It has to be client component. Here's that model that we created, talked about, that property model. And because of naming collisions, the property type from payload types, I'm just aliasing as property type. And so that's the data that's going to be passed in to the property context and through the property provider. The provider adds the children, wraps the children, accepts the data, and then we have a use property hook that grabs the context. This context in this case is just the property data, and then we return an instance of that property model, instantiating it with that data. And just to make sure this is clear, I'll just call that data. And so now we have a property that all the child components will have access to as that model, as the model class that we're using, which has access to the getters that we created. All right, so now let's add this provider to the page. We can call this property provider. And then this accepts the data, like so. And just to show you, and let's just create another component. Let's do address. Let's just call this address. Address.tsx. And we're going to do export const property address equals, and this has to be a client component, like so. And then we're going to grab that hook now, property equals use property, coming out of our context. And now this should be the property object. And so now we can say return and so we're going to do a return and do let's do this div, and now we can say property dot address. I thought I had a full address in there. let's check it out. Let's see if we have the details, address, and what is this? We have the full address here, so good. Yeah, let's do property address dot full, and you can see you get all the type hints from here, and like that. And let's see how. So now we import property address to the page. And let's check it out. And there's our address. So you can see this is really nice. It's much cleaner. I prefer it. Again, it's not a requirement if you want to do things differently. If you want to do these as all server rendered or all client components, you're welcome to do it however you want. But this, to me, I found this to be a much nicer way to do it, because you're going to have a bunch of these components all stacked like this, and that just looks so much better to me. And so now that I kind of showed you the sort of structure and framework for how to build this page, I'm going to start copying and pasting some of the HTML and the components that I've already created. And so we don't have to walk through and bore you with all the Tailwind classes and just typing in a bunch of divs and containers and things like that. So you won't get much value out of that, I don't think. However, if that is something you would find value in, do let me know. I would be more than happy to do a separate video on just this, building out this page, including the photo gallery, how I got all that responsive. So if that's something that interests you, do let me know in the comments. All right, so I'm going to do something a little bit differently here with the address, because I want the address to be, the street address to be bold, and then the rest of the city, state, and zip code to just be normal font weight. And so I'm not actually going to use full address. I'm going to use all of these different parts separately. And so I have this div here that I'm going to copy and paste in here. All right, so now we have that going. And now you can see the address is nice and formatted. And so now I'm going to start adding all of the other components that have been already built out. And so we're just going to kind of go through these one by one. We're going to call this agent contact. And that's just the card that has the contact form, and but there's no actual data in here, so this is just going to be a static element, a static component. And then we're going to have description. We need a getter, because we. Oh, you know what? I don't think I added description to the property collection yet. Let's see. Yeah, let's add description. And then make this text area. In a later video, we'll probably make this rich text, but I don't want to get into that yet. So now let's update. Let's check out our seeders to make sure we have a description here. And let's see. Yeah, there we go. Description. So let's go ahead and run our seeder one more time. Let's go into our model and then just add a description. And then just return this dot data dot description. And that should fix it. All right. So we have property description. We're going to do property details. And then with property details, we have another component called property status. And I'll just add that status.tsx, and then we'll do const. Yeah, listing status, and then over here, just import that like so. And then here's our property address. We'll deal with, we have bedrooms here, okay? So now let's do features. That looks good. This just pulls in our features collection from the property. And then we'll do a placeholder on the gallery. And just export const property gallery. Return gallery. And then another stubbed out for the map. The map is just going to be a placeholder for now. Just paste that in there. This is just a big giant gray box. We have our overview, which includes the property description. And there aren't any dependencies on that one. All right. Property details. This is still a little bit hard-coded. Some of this might be hard-coded, and we'll get to that in a bit. So, all right, so I think that's it. So let's go back to the page and start carving it out a bit. Close all this out, go up to the page, and just replace this with a whole bunch of HTML I've already designed and put together. But basically it's just adding those columns. It's setting a container for the gallery, and then the right side and left side columns. That's pretty much all this HTML is doing. So let's just import those. And there we go. That looks good. Okay. And so here is our property detail page. We have the actual price. So if we go into one of these properties and try a different one, let's go to Mertz. The price is $634,000. We have the title, Modern Mountain View. Let's see what it looks like. Yep, there we go. Modern Mountain View, $634,000. Here's the address. Here's our new seated description. And here's all the features. Stubbed out map and the agent card. All right. So now I'm gonna pause for a bit, and but I'll be back. I have to actually take a step away for a minute, but when I come back, we'll start on the photo gallery. Okay, so let's go into the admin panel for this property, so we can add a bunch of photos in there, and then come back to this template and start working on the photo gallery. And And so we have, so first what we need to do is add the photos field and make that a relationship field to the media collection. So we will do that. Let's just do it up here. All right, so yep, name photos, type upload, and relation to media has many is true. So let's see if that updated our admin panel, and it did. So we can drag and drop a whole bunch of photos here, which I'm going to attempt to do. And so we can let's create some photos. Just upload them here. We'll just select some from bathrooms here. 3 bathrooms. We'll add another one. We'll add this one, a couple front pictures, maybe some kitchen. And a few more. Let's see, we have maybe a bedroom. Here we go. This is good. And that's probably good for now. And so I'm just gonna edit all of them. I'm gonna edit all the alt tags here just to get it done. Apply changes, and then we save. Let these upload. I'll just fast forward this. And there's our photos. Good. Okay, so now that we have photos, let's make sure you can't forget to save the property. So the photos were uploaded and saved to the media collection, but now the relationship to these photos has to be saved. Sometimes I forget about that. And there we go. They are now saved on the property. And so now if we go here, this should not have broken. Go back to our page, go into photo gallery, and I'm just going to copy and paste some stuff. Let's grab the property out of our use property hook. Grab the images off the property photos, and this should be on our model, so we can say, oh, well, thank you, and go back to gallery, and there's the photos. So I just wanted to create a quick array of images. And then we can grab our feature image. Let's just show our feature image for now. And we'll grab this out. And that should be it. Use property from the server is on. Oh, this has to be a client component. And where is our Let's see if we have a feature image. Undefined. I bet you we're not looking at the same property. Let's look at our API. Photos. Depth. Okay. Oh yeah, we're not looking at the same property. Oops. Go to our preview, and there we go. It's a very big photo. And let's just, so we can see it. There we go. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just copy and paste the rest of it. I just wanted to make sure the data was coming through correctly. And so now I'm just gonna paste all of this in, and I'll just walk through basically what it's doing, but let's take a look at what this looks like now. I'm kind of zoomed in here. So there we are. And that is the photo gallery, but let me just walk through it real quick. I have the dialog from ShadCN, and we're using that for the pop-up, so you can actually see all the photos here, even all of them, not just the 7. And then we have, so here we have the dialog. The dialog will wrap around the entire gallery, and so each one of these images I'm setting as a trigger. So the dialog comes with a trigger, so anything that's a trigger, you click on it, will open that dialog. I don't have to, ShadCN has set up some really smart defaults so that you don't have to maintain the state of that dialog or modal. As long as you use the trigger, it'll handle all of that for you. And so each image on this page is actually making use of that dialog trigger. So as I iterate through the grid images here, you can see here each one of those is also a dialog trigger. So now when you go to that, all of these are triggers. So the whole thing is just one big trigger. And then the content, dialog content, this just iterates through all the images and then just renders out the image. But all of the grid stuff is happening here. You can see here feature image in a grid. We have a grid columns 12, and then now I just manage everything through columns. So you can see here, so this is all a grid-based layout, and that is our photo gallery. And again, like I mentioned, if you wanted to have me walk through this from scratch in a separate video, just so you can see how I built this, I'm more than happy to do that as a separate video, but just let me know in the comments. In our next video, we're going to start working on the property agent, and which means we need user authentication, and we need user roles, and we need agent profiles. So like all of this stuff, the avatar image, all of that's going to be part of the agent profile. And then lastly, I did want to cover one thing about this grid. This is not the default grid that you would expect to see from Payload if you have a upload collection. Let me remove the custom CSS that I added, and so you can see actually what it looks like. So I went over here into, and there may be a different way to do this, but actually this is more of like the minimum viable product way to do it. So here in my custom.scss file, but here is all of the classes for managing the design, the layout, and the look of that grid. So if I just were to remove this, comment all of this out, and then reload the page, you can see, so this is actually the default view of an upload collection, a has many collection. And so all of the functionality that I need is already there. I don't have to create all this stuff from scratch. So one of the options I had was to create a custom view or a custom component to render these out, which it seems, I was assuming anyway, that if you do that, that means I have to now be responsible for implementing my own drag and drop implementing my own, edit, and modals and stuff. So I would have to trigger this thing, and there's a lot of work involved in getting all of this working. So I decided rather than do that, I would just go ahead and inspect all of these classes here, and then so I would grab one of these and I would just go through one by one and figure out how to manipulate the styles for each of these, where ultimately it looks like this now. Let that load. There we go. And so I didn't update any of the way this is dragged, or any of the actual behavior is all the same. All I'm doing is updating the styles of each of these classes, and I ended up with this look. So everything still operates the same. I can still edit these photos if I want, the alt tag. And so yeah, that was all I wanted to cover at the end of this. Just a little bonus feature. All right, so that's all I wanted to cover today. There's a little bit more detail that I wanted to include in this video, but it's a little bit minor. So there's some differences between what we ended up with today than with what I showed you in the demo in the beginning of this video, but it's just little things. So in my next video, I'll probably tie this page up into a nice bow and add some of the more finer details, and make some changes to the admin panel as well to kind of clean that UI up a little bit as well. So, but in the next video, we are going to talk about user authentication, so that we can add agents and assign them to the profile, as well as, or assign them to the property and then create agent profiles too as well. So we can have their license number and all that stuff, and be able to contact them with a contact form on the property detail page. So then our property detail page will be wrapped up, and we'll start working on the search results page. So you should be able to go into the search page and find the listings property that you're interested in and get a search results. And so that'll be fun too. So, all right, thanks a lot. We'll see you in the next one.